Okay, so good afternoon. No, it's not afternoon. Sorry, start again. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our Mental Health Awareness Week talk. This is a one-off special. We have got Courtney Scarlett, Sonia O'Neil, and Charlie King joining us today. And they're going to be talking to us about everything related to mental health and their views around mental health and how they cope with it, really. So we're really interested to hear your guys' view. The interview is going to be run by Naomi Dean, Melody Broomfield, and Raymond, who's part of the Princess Trust team. So I'm now going to shut up and I'm going to hand over to our fabulous three interviewers. So over to you, Melody.
Hello. So our first questions are going to be for Charlie. So before we start, what do you identify as and what are your pronouns?
I identify as he, him, male.
Yeah, thank you. So you are you a fitness coach?
That's correct. I am. I've been a coach for about 6 years now.
Oh wow. Well, so our first question is, what is body dysmorphia?
Okay, so body dysmorphia is a mental health condition which specifically is around body image, and it's quite an obsessive mental condition, which means that you can spend excessive amounts of time being very, very critical about your appearance, and it can lead to quite difficult mental health problems.
Thank you for sharing that. Naomi, your turn.
So how would you say body dysmorphia has affected you personally?
The identifying with body dysmorphia has been quite a long process for me. I didn't realize I had it, truthfully. I've always been someone that's quite self-critical. I think coming through the age of social media and being on reality TV 10 years ago, we were very aware of image, but I didn't realize to what extent. And then as the years have progressed, and especially within the pandemic, I found myself becoming more and more fixated about my appearance, to the point where I underwent plastic surgery, something that I deeply regret and something that's caused me no end of aggravation in many different ways. But I wish I realized that I was struggling with the condition and gone down the route of therapy at the time, or tried to identify a little bit more of an understanding about the condition before embarking on plastic surgery. If that answers that question.
Yeah, and living with body dysmorphia, would you say how therapy has helped you cope with the sort of struggles?
It's a very tricky one because I didn't realize I had it, and over the years I've been always just thought that I had this high expectation of myself, and I didn't realize I was actually being quite detrimental to my own health by pulling myself apart. So obviously if you go to the next level and decide to have plastic surgery, and then unfortunately you don't get the results that you wished for, it can cause no end of mental trauma. And so trying to live with that and learn resources or ways to manage that has been my biggest challenge, and something that I'm still getting help with today, because it doesn't just go away. However, you can find ways to treat it and work with it and get an understanding of it. And that's been the biggest thing for me in this last 6 months, especially, is finding the right help, finding the right people that can educate and help me understand what the condition is, because I was a little bit blindsided by it, or I just thought I was just super critical and I'm just now going to try and have plastic surgery. I didn't realize it was so deep rooted. So that understanding has been so valuable to me in this last 6 months. And this is why it's now something that's a big part of what I do within my public career. because I want to share this experience and just keep it as honest as I can to try and potentially help other people.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
My pleasure.
And I think Raymond has some questions for you.
So, what type of pressure do you face being a reality TV star?
Sorry, could you repeat that for me? I didn't quite.
What type of pressure do you face being a reality TV star?
The thing about reality TV is it's got amazing pros and it's got a lot of cons. And I think it's like anything, it thrusts you into the spotlight and you can get this wave of attention, which is good and it can be bad. You also end up gaining lots of social media followers, and then you get a lot of brands that want to use you for a window of time, and you think that you need to look a certain aesthetic in order to be popular, to get the likes, to get the jobs. And you can fall into a little bit of a cycle where you think you need to be of a certain way the whole time, and it's quite challenging, and that in itself creates a pressure. When I was asked to do fitness modeling, they wanted me to have a six-pack. They wanted me to look a certain way for the shoot. And so that in itself was a pressure, because I knew that I had to look a certain way in order to do the job properly. And then I could see my audience, my followers, fan base were responding very positively to my aesthetic. Then I felt like I had to uphold that, and I couldn't be anything but that. And that in itself, after a while, is challenging because it's very consuming and you can't relax. So I never want to just get the violins out and be like, oh, we make these choices to go and do these things. No one forced me into a reality TV show. I wanted to do it because I thought it'd be an amazing opportunity, and it has been. Hence, I'm sitting here today, being able to use my story to help people. But I think you sometimes go in without really assessing the bigger picture. And I think that's what my role is now. And that's what's so important for me, is that anyone that wants to embark on reality TV, yes, you're going to get some amazing experiences. And for some, it's plain sailing, but that's not the case for everyone. And you need to make sure that you're prepared and you're equipped for falling into traps, because it can easily happen. I fell into traps I genuinely thought I would never fall into, because I'm quite self-assured and self-aware, but I did because I felt a pressure.
Okay. So, do you think it's possible to overcome body dysmorphia?
I do. I'm working with the Body Dysmorphia Disorder Foundation right now, and that's been, again, a real positive to come out of this experience and this journey that I'm on to overcoming it. And they've been great. And if anyone feels they might be struggling or obsessing about the way they look, or it's consuming their happiness on the daily, or it's creating a change in their behavior, then I strongly urge you to check out the BDDF, because they're incredible. And so I'm incorporating that into my work now. And as I'm working through it, I'm realizing with talking about it, talking therapies is always really, really helpful. I think once you start sharing what's on your mind or how you feel, instantly that's a release, and that's something that I endorse every day. Just talk, express how you feel. And then when it comes to maybe needing a little bit of help with medication, you can understand what antidepressants can do, CBT therapy, cognitive behavior therapy. These are ways to try and understand, because it's a thing that can be a chemical within the brain. And so sometimes we need that help leveling out those chemicals to make sure that we're functioning right, or we're calm and we understand the situation. Sometimes when you feel like you're in the unknown, that's when it can become a very tricky situation, and you can fall deeper and deeper into a hole. And having the BDDF, having them as a resource has been incredible. And that's why I want to continue raising awareness on this subject, because I can't sit here now and say that I'm cured of BDD. It's a long process, but I'm understanding it, and I am not as scared anymore about it, and I'm not as embarrassed as I was about it, because the one thing that I've had is real embarrassment that I'm a guy, that I'm struggling with my body image when there's so many problems in the world, and there's me sitting there obsessing about a nose job that went wrong. But that's my reality, and I have to be sympathetic to that, and I'm learning those things, and that's what's really important, and that makes me feel better. So to be continued on the final outcome on that, but I'm definitely work in progress, and there is progress being made. And I would say to anyone that might be struggling with it, or who might know someone that's struggling with it, it's definitely treatable. You just need to find the right way that works for you.
Okay.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Charlie.
That's my pleasure.
So our next questions are for Courtney. Is it correct that you are an advocate for safe riding?
Yes, I ride motorbikes. And,
Yeah, wow. So my first question is, what do you identify as, and what are your pronouns?
so I identify as female, so she or her.
Yep, thank you. So what made you interested in motorcycling?
I was always kind of interested and curious about motorbikes when I was very, very young, really small child. And it was definitely something I kind of envisaged when I was older, getting into. I kind of forgot about it in my teens, kind of got distracted a little bit by boys mostly, and just generally being a teenager. And yeah, I think I was about 23 when my friend suddenly came around my house on a motorbike, and I asked to jump on the back. And as soon as we went for a ride, I knew that I wanted to be on the front of the bike. Yeah, I always thought it would be really cool to have a boyfriend one day that rode a motorbike, and then I suddenly realized that I didn't want a boyfriend that rode a motorbike. I wanted to be the one riding the motorbike. So pretty much immediately after getting off that bike, I think I booked in to do my test. So yeah, and I've been riding ever since, so almost 10 years.
Oh wow, it's a long time.
Yeah.
So name me the next questions are yours.
So have you had any injuries while riding, and how has that affected you mentally and physically?
I have only had sort of one big crash on my motorcycle, and it was quite early on. I don't think I'd been riding a year yet, and I was yet to do my full license. So with motorbikes, it's a little bit like driving a car, where you can have your provisional license and then your full license. So I was riding out on the road practicing, and a car came and pulled out, and it took me off. And I actually had my test, my main motorcycle test, the very next day. I was okay. I wasn't too harmed. I was just very kind of scratched up and bruised and all the rest, but I hadn't broken anything. I was fine, really. I knew that mentally, if I really absorbed what had happened, maybe it could affect me and put me off riding. So with that in mind, I went home. We had to push my motorcycle back home because the motorcycle was a write-off. The motorbike was no more, but I was fine. And I decided that I would just continue, and the next day I would go and I'd do my motorbike test and feel the fear and just kind of do it anyway.
That's really good. And what inspired you to become an advocate for safe riding?
A lot of it was probably that accident, because it happened so early on when I started biking, and it also wasn't my fault. It made me realize that I could do everything I could do to stay safe, but also there was nothing I could do about other people that were on the road. Now, as I'm older, I drive around with 2 children. I have 2 young daughters, and I see a lot of people driving in their car using their phone, or riding on a motorbike and not necessarily wearing the correct gear that will keep them safe. Things like that is just everything to keeping everybody safe on the road. Staying off your phone, or wearing the right safety equipment. For me, when I had my accident, it could have been completely different if I didn't have my motorcycle gear on. If I wasn't wearing the correct jeans, I probably would have scars all over my legs. But I was absolutely fine, walked away from it absolutely fine. So yeah, it's the importance really of staying safe, and all you can really do is be responsible for your own behaviour. So yeah, it's really just taking ownership of that and being aware.
Yeah, that's really good to show your experience in it. And Raymond has the last question for you.
Oh, how has suicide affected your family and yourself in the past?
So me and my family have all had depression throughout the years, throughout our lives. A few years ago, a very close family friend of mine did unfortunately commit suicide. And to be honest, it's something where no one will ever be over it. I think it's grief, but with a whole load of guilt on top for everybody that's left behind after that. He was very much like a father figure to me, very much the only kind of father figure I felt that I had in my life. And I think that if he could see the devastation that has been left behind, he'd know that no one was better off without him. And I know from having experienced depression and having had those thoughts before myself of, should I take my life? Does anyone really need me? Things like that, really, really unhealthy thoughts. And I think at some point in most people's life, they will have really dark days, moments like that, where maybe they're not sure if they want to continue. They don't know if life is worth carrying on with. I think the experience of losing somebody in that particular way has really hit home to me what that act truly is, and how it makes everybody else feel, because the guilt that you sort of endure, I know it'll stay with everyone that knew him for the rest of their lives. Yeah, I think it's one of those things to kind of mirror what Charlie was saying about talking and mental health. It's something where I do think if you need to have someone to speak to, and no thought that you have about life you should never be too ashamed to speak to someone. So if you don't have friends that you can speak to, if you don't have family members that you can open up to and be 100% honest with, I would just urge anyone to really reach out. There are so many resources out there, people that are willing to speak to you. I know myself, if I've had times where I felt like there was nobody available to speak to, I've called up the Samaritans, and sometimes just speaking to a stranger is so much more beneficial than living with it and speaking to no one. And no matter how dark the day is, feeling that people might be better off without you is never the case. It's absolutely never the case. So yeah, that would be what I would say. That's how it's affected me. That's definitely the lesson I've learned, is speak openly about your feelings if and when you need to, reach out for help, and also to check in on your friends, check in on your family members. If you know someone is going through a hard time, be there for them, even if you think maybe you're overstepping the mark. I definitely have a lot of regrets from that situation, and thought at the time I was doing enough, and now I have to live the rest of my life wondering if I could have done a little bit more. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
So much for sharing.
Mm.
So the next person we'll be interviewing is Sonia. So you are a professional footballer, and what do you identify as, and what are your pronouns?
I identify as female, so she and her.
Yeah, thank you very much. So how did you get into football and who inspired you?
When I was about 3 years old, I was always outside and always with a ball, so I think it came naturally. But my family did tell me that my uncle, who passed away when I was young, that a lot of the movements I would make, or just when I was playing with the ball, they could tell that it reminded them of him. So for me, I think it just came naturally, and my parents saw how happy it made me, so they put me. Actually, my family friend started a soccer school, and I started playing with the boys. So I think from a young age, I enjoyed it, and then as I got older, I just had my mind set on that. Even though when I was young, there wasn't that many opportunities yet for female footballers.
Oh, thank you for sharing.
As what
Yeah.
pressures do you face being a female footballer?
Yeah, so like I said, when I was young, growing up in school, I always put down that I want to be a female footballer and a teacher. And, they'd always be like, well, I think you should lean more towards being a teacher. It's more realistic. And that's kind of like what I grew up around. When I was younger, I was very sporty, short hair and everything. But as I became a teenager, I really got into makeup, doing your hair, dressing up, and I enjoyed that. And I think that a lot of times they made me feel uncomfortable for that. Like people would say like, oh, like, why are you doing your makeup? You're a footballer. You should look more like one. And actually to this day in my 20s, I'm still told that sometimes. Like before an interview at some clubs, they'd be like, can you try to look a bit less girly, whatever that may be. But so I think some of the pressures we do face is one, like, you have to look a certain way to be almost respected as a footballer and play a certain way. And I think, like, for me personally, looking a bit more like liking to do my hair and makeup, I do have to prove myself double on the field, which can be frustrating. But a lot of pressures, like I said before, like financially, like in the beginning, there's not a lot of opportunities. So you do have to have the second job. Just at some clubs, them telling you to only post football pictures because that's professional, and you see a lot of things that you probably wouldn't see on the men's side. So that was a big challenge for me, especially when you get injured, right? If you have an injury, a lot of times you're just a number to them, and it does cause a lot of stress and anxiety for a lot of players. So you get an injury, and right away, they're putting more pressure on you to get fit, get healthy. And if you have a strong social media following, you're seeing messages and comments every day like, when are you back? When are you back? So you start feeling that pressure. And another major thing is like your body weight, your body fat percentage. When I first went to college in USA for football, there was 2 girls on my team that were having problems. Like they were facing anorexia. Like after meals they were throwing up, and so I started following them into the washroom to try to make sure they wouldn't do that after meals. I tried talking to them, but I think these are a lot of things that go unnoticed in the sports world. And I think that pressure does come from, like, let's say in 3 weeks from now I'm going with my national team, and the first thing they're going to do is they're going to check your weight, your body fat percentage, tell you how much you should lose. And sometimes you might get anxious or start stressing about that in ways that can become unhealthy. And you might start forming unhealthy habits to reach those goals, but which then affects your performance actually in a negative way, especially if you're stressing about it mentally. And, it does affect it in a negative way. Also, like, contracts on the female side are usually for a year. So you could be in one country starting to get settled, and then in a few months, you don't know where you're going to be, what country you're going to be living in, when your breaks are, when you're going to see your family. And so you start worrying about what's to come. So I think it's important to like really focus on just the things you can control and the things you can't. But it can be stressful, and it's a side that I think a lot of people don't see with that, like the feeling of feeling anxious about where you are, where you're going, where your life's going to be. Am I going to be in this country the next one? You just have to up and move like this. Like one time I got on a plane the next day to move all my all my stuff from France to Scotland. So it happens like that.
Oh yeah, it's very interesting to hear the insights. And you said earlier that you've been playing football since you were really young, but have you ever thought about having a different career path?
Yeah, I did think about being a teacher from a young age, but a part of me, like, I believe if you have a passion for something, to go at it with 100%. And so what I did is I kind of did both. My first year of playing overseas professionally, I was teaching English online, but I was also playing. So I got to do both. And I actually enjoyed both. But I learned with football, I think I can have more of an impact for young girls and like just showing them that they can play professionally now and kind of opening that window for them. So I'm happy with my choice. And I do train kids individually in my summers in Toronto. So when I do that, I think I get the best of both worlds because I'm teaching them. I get the one-on-one time with them, but I'm also teaching them football skills. But I think it goes beyond that because a lot of the characteristics you develop playing a sport correlate to everyday life. So I really enjoy it.
That's really good. And Raymond has one final question for you.
So, as a female footballer, do you think the pay gap between male footballers and female footballers is different?
Yeah, so this question I think is a very sticky one in the sports world right now. I think there is a big pay gap, and I know a lot of females might say equal pay, but there's a lot more that goes into it. But what I do believe is that females need to be paid more or they don't need a second job. I'm currently on a football team now. If we win 1 out of the next 3 games, we're going to Champions League. And there's some girls on my team still working a second job. And I think that the pay gap needs to be a lot smaller and eventually grow towards equal pay, but we can't just demand equal pay as we're not bringing the numbers and as the men are right now, but it will help with more social media, more viewings of it. And I do think that, again, like if you have a professional football women's team, it shouldn't be a thing that a girl needs a second job in order to sustain a normal life. You know, not even a flashy life like the on the male side. So I do think the pay gap is a big issue. Like I said, I had to teach on the side in the beginning. Now, luckily, like I've grown as a player. I've done a lot of years and I'm okay now, but it is hard. But again, I think it'll take time and yeah, it's still work in progress.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Sonia. So the next questions are for you all. So I'm not sure how you would want to answer them, but who is the most famous person you have met and how have they inspired you, if they have? So maybe Charlie, would you like to answer this first?
I'm just trying to think actually. This famous person. I've met quite a few. I'm trying to think of like most inspirational. Probably I had the pleasure of meeting David Furnish, who's Elton John's husband. And I got to go to a really special award ceremony and he was there. And all the work that he does with EJAF, which is Elton John's AIDS Foundation, that was incredible to be amongst such incredible people that are doing amazing things for the AIDS epidemic and the movement in that over the years and the tireless work that they do. So that was pretty special. I remember pinching myself thinking, like, how am I here amongst these sort of people that are doing such incredible things? And obviously Elton John himself is an icon, and what his husband has done, David, with the foundation is equally as incredible and inspiring. So that's probably up there with the most inspiring / famous people I've ever met. I've met J-Lo as well, and anyone that knows me knows that I'm the biggest Jennifer Lopez fan. And so the fact that meet her and tell her that one of her songs was my favorite is definitely also up there.
Oh, I'm so jealous.
Yeah,
what was she like? Because she always gets a reputation of being a bit of a diva. She's not like that.
I did some reporting for ITN News a few years ago. She was doing a show over here in London, and they gave me a press pass to go and do some behind the stage or behind the scenes reporting. And she was one of the headline artists with Lionel Richie.
Wow.
And I was told, don't go near her team. Her team only approves certain people to go near her and can't go up to her and whatever. Honestly, I got talking to one of her dancers randomly, and then they invited me to where they were rehearsing, just warming up for the show. Came over and she introduced herself, and she was the most down-to-earth, friendly person. She introduced herself to Jennifer, and I was a hot mess. I was a giggly girl. And on the TV, like, because we was filming it, they were like, Charlie, you need to calm down a little bit.
Oh, wow. Courtney, who's the most famous person you've met?
Probably the most famous person. Didn't meet him for very long. Was Johnny Depp. I met him at a premiere of his. It was a Pirates of the Caribbean, but I can't remember which one. So it's quite a long time ago now. Probably 10 or 15 years ago. He was in London for the premiere of that. Yeah, I was crazy excited. I think I might have cried when I walked away from him because he kissed my hand to say like hello or goodbye. I lost it. I ran off crying. But yeah, I mean, he's someone that I've always really just generally really liked and admired. And obviously he's in the media a lot at the moment. Yeah, I mean, obviously I think maybe different people are on different sides of the fence. I think when he first had the kind of allegations against him, I kind of always felt that it seemed somewhat out of character from what you hear about him generally. And to be honest, I think it's great. I think there's probably not enough men out there that are willing to kind of break that stereotype surrounding abuse. So yeah, hats off to Johnny Depp for doing that, really. It's my opinion on that one. But yeah, he was a cool person to meet.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Sonia, who's the most famous person you've met?
I would say for me, it's Pirlo, a famous Italian footballer, and he was playing with my childhood best friend. So I was actually like in university, and I went to the restaurant to meet my friend, and he was just sitting there having a glass of wine with him. So I would say him, and he's very humble, like took the time even to have a glass of wine with my friend who had just signed professionally with the MLS team. It was like huge, but for me, I loved how humble he was, because I think that a lot of athletes or famous people sometimes get caught up on the materialistic things. And, you know, like I met David Villa was also on this team at the time, and his personality was the complete opposite. And it showed me like how I don't want to be, like just walking by, you know, 3 kids that are trying to get an autograph or all of that. So I think Pirlo it would be, but when it comes to like it's inspirational, I would say it would be one of my friends. I think he makes everyone laugh. He's known for his comedy, and you know he's open about battling with depression. And I think, you know, after being friends with him, it hit me hard that like someone who looks the happiest and, you know, is bringing smiles to everyone else is actually fighting the biggest battle on their own. And I'm really happy that he's open about it with all his followers now and his friends, and he reaches out, or we reach out to him. So yeah, I would say it would be him, my friend Bash. Yeah.
Oh wow, thank you.
And so my question was actually very similar to Melody's. So I'm going to make up a different one, which is, do you have any role models that you've had throughout your life that you've never met but would like to, that could be famous or not famous? and starting with, well, could be whoever has the answer, but Charlie, if you know.
I might need a moment on this one. Go on, Courtney.
It started with you again.
Trying to, I wouldn't necessarily call her a role model, but there's a girl called Letitia Klein, who's quite famous over in the States for riding motorbikes. And when I first started riding, I never had Instagram or anything like that. So I would ride my motorbike, and then when Instagram sort of caught my attention for the first time, I don't know how many years later that was, but I followed this girl. She was very glamorous, very cool, and she had loads of followers. I thought she was really cool, and I really remember quite distinctly her suddenly posting about how it was almost all a bit of a lie, and this kind of glamorous jet-setting life she was leading on social media, riding cool motorbikes everywhere. It was all kind of a ruse, I suppose, and she wasn't really doing any of this stuff. She was funding a lot of it herself to make it look good on social media, and actually she was in a significant amount of debt. And I think that sort of spiraled into maybe somewhat of a depression for her. And yeah, that really stuck with me. And that was years before doing any kind of social media or anything like that myself. It kind of opened my eyes to the fact that what you see on social media in general is just a tiny sliver of someone's life, and it is no reflection of them at all. As a person, and how glamorous their life is or their job may appear, how many followers they have. The more followers you have, unfortunately, it probably means that person gets even more hatred, even more kind of vile comments on their photos, things like that. It's actually very tough to be at the top. And I'm actually really grateful that almost I had a bit of insight to that before doing any kind of social media or having any success in the motorcycling world myself. Because I never felt this pressure to live up to something that didn't exist. I knew what it was. I kind of knew the pros and I knew the cons, and I'm quite grateful for that, actually. And I think there's not enough people that are probably able to truly show the reality of your life. And again, it's not what social media is necessarily for, but her honesty. And to this day, she's very honest. I'm 32. I think she's about 10 years older than me. She's honest about she's had a bit of Botox, or she's edited a photo or something. She's very honest about it. She puts it out there. She tells the world, and I think it keeps everybody in check. That the reality of this beautiful image of her on a motorcycle, for everybody else, you could look at it and go, "Wow, I'll never look like her." But she's quite honest and will say, "Do you know what? Even I don't look like me." You're just seeing that kind of sliver of her life. So yeah, I found that really inspiring.
That's really good, thank you. And I know it's a bit of a tricky question, but if anyone else has anyone that is inspiring to them that they haven't met, then you can also share, but don't feel forced to find someone in your head if you don't have someone.
Me, just off the top of my head, I think what Lil Nas is doing in the hip hop R&B world, expressing himself the way he is really inspiring, and a huge movement for music culture. I think that's phenomenal, seeing him be his authentic self, when there's always been so much of a stereotype around what an R&B hip hop male star should be like, especially with sexuality. And obviously I think that's so important for people to see people being totally authentic. Also, Ricky Martin's always been someone that I read his book many years ago, and he helped me come to terms with my own sexuality. And so he's always been someone that I would love to just say thank you to in person, if I could ever get that opportunity. But as a humanitarian, someone that's into spirituality, and someone that really struggled with their identity, he was a huge superstar that was living a lie. And I kind of related to his story in a very small way, of course, but he showed me that you can and you will be all right. And that was always he's always someone that's very close to my heart with my history. And currently, I think Stephen Bartlett is doing amazing things. The guy that's got the Diary of a CEO podcast, who's on Dragon's Den. I think that he's bringing something to the media and to podcasts right now, and to conversation, which is really helping people from talking all things entrepreneurship, careers, challenging starts in life to how you overcome them. And I get a lot from him right now, which I think that I'm all for, just sharing things. I love using my social media to share things that resonate with me that might just be able to have that domino effect. So they're my three.
Thank you. And Sonia, do you have anybody?
Yeah, actually, there's someone who's not necessarily like an actor or a footballer or something like that, but it's called Real Life Murphy, and he's someone that uses his social media to basically do what I hope to do in the future. And he goes around South America finding, I don't know, Venezuelan families that migrated to Colombia because of the economic situation there, the government and all of that. Or he goes to El Salvador and he helps all these families or kids, building schools, giving gifts, bringing Christmas to them. And, he basically uses Instagram in a way to give back to the community in a way that's real. Like, he's very real. He shows the situation, the family, lets them tell their story the way they want to tell it. And, people donate, and the things he does is honestly incredible. I actually talk to him time to time and say, like, he's doing what I hope to do with my football career and with my social media in the future. And it's amazing to see, 1 month he's in El Salvador, 1 month he's in Mexico, 1 month he's in Colombia, Venezuela, and the joy he brings to people. Like, it's just overwhelming. He's honestly incredible. So he's someone I would say that I look up to as a role model, especially in the social media world. I think it's amazing because, like, going off what Courtney said, you never really know what people are going through on social media. And even though I do have a following as well, like, I do feel like, sometimes I want to post stuff that's like more me, like more real, and you hesitate to because of how the social media world is, or in my case, because of my profession. If I post me swimming at a beach, you get like so many comments saying you should be training. What are you doing? It's like almost, I don't know. Sometimes it can be really, really good Instagram. Sometimes it can be hard. So I think, Murphy, this guy's doing amazing job, amazing. And I love watching his videos and the smiles he brings, seeing people cry of joy. It's honestly incredible. You can tell how hard he's working for the people.
That's really good. Thank you. I just want to check that we're right for time because we've got a couple more questions. But
yeah, time's fine.
Okay, and so Raymond has another question for you.
How did you overcome negativity and hate from the general public and through the media?
Sonia, do you want to start?
Sure. I think, and I say this to teenagers too when I talk to them, and, people I'm friends with, you can't get too high off the positive comments and too low off the negative ones. And I think that when people are leaving hatred or negative comments on your social media, they're going out of their way to hate on you. I think says more about them, and that maybe they're not happy with their own life or they're going through their own things. So I almost, when I see negative comments now, I kind of feel bad for them in a way, because to me, if you have a good life, if you're happy, if you're at peace with yourself, then you don't feel the need to go hate on other people, no matter who they are or what they do. So I think for me, when I see hateful comments, I just kind of, actually sometimes I respond. I used to respond to some fans and saying like, sorry, you're really upset with the fact that I'm posting a selfie, but I hope that your life gets happier where you don't feel the need to hate on others or stuff like that. And I think now I'm just at a point where I ignore the hateful comments, or sometimes even reach out to them and say like, are you okay? Because I think sometimes that hate is coming from a place in their lives where they're holding on to hate or sadness, or they're facing their own battles, and I guess that's their way of releasing it. So I just think it's important to remember that it shows a lot more about them and less about you, and to maybe just ignore it is where I go with it. But again, not too high off the positive comments, not too low off the negative ones.
Courtney?
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree with Sonia. In regards to, I think it's just people that do things like that, I think it is a major reflection of their own mental health, where they're at in their life. Because a happy person just doesn't feel the need to leave a complete stranger a completely negative comment that might, you know, it depending on the person. I think that's the scary thing about social media. If you're quite self-assured and you're quite confident, it's water off a duck's back. For somebody else, if you say that one thing that is maybe really particularly bothering them that day or in that moment in that life, or then if they're not feeling that strong in that moment when they see that comment, it can do so much more than just ruin their day. It can seriously have long-term effects on their confidence and their own self-esteem. So by just casually throwing out negative comments out there to people on the internet is something that I think you really got to be in a dark space of your own to do that to someone else. And similarly, quite often I feel like, I mean, I get them quite a lot, and to be honest, it's quite often the same narrative. People get make an assumption about you, and then any kind of hateful comments. Sometimes it's things about my physical appearance, maybe things that I'm already self-conscious about, and I don't necessarily want people pointing it out. And I had one very much recently. I've got a very young daughter, so I've had people make maybe remarks about my weight, my figure not being as it once was. I've got a baby who's going to be turning 3 months tomorrow, so it's something where it really, people know how to sometimes get under your skin with those comments, even if you're quite happy and self-assured in your life. Sometimes people do find a way to still really get in your head, and I think it's one of those things where, for me, in regards to that person, I'll either delete the comment that they've said, or sometimes I'll have a conversation with them. I never ever want to, there's no point ever trying to attack that person. I'll often just ask them why they feel that way. Why is that your opinion? And I might point out to them that that's not made me feel so great. And more often than not, actually, you'd be surprised at how many people actually say sorry. When you open up a conversation about why they've said it, so many people apologize. As soon as, or they'll say, oh, I didn't realize that you were actually the person whose account it was. And you go, well, yeah, of course, I'm a real person. But so that's always interesting to me. It's almost as if they didn't even think I was going to read it. But in terms of me, and if someone says something that kind of sits and it simmers in my head maybe for a day, I just try to always say to myself, at the end of the day, even if they think the same thing about me as a flaw, that maybe I'm insecure about it too. So what? I can't change it. And if it's something that I wanted to go and change or could go and change, I don't even think that I necessarily would. None of us are perfect. And quite often, if I look at the person who sent this comment to me, I can look at them, and it doesn't matter who they are, they're not perfect either. And I'm certainly not masquerading or pretending to myself that I am. I know what I am. And quite often you've just got to be kind of kind to yourself and forgive yourself for your own flaws in some sort of strange way, and accept them about yourself. And that's how, for me personally, it kind of allows me to move on and shake it off. And especially a little bit like what Charlie said earlier, especially when it comes to things that are about your physical appearance, about where you look, you know deep down that it shouldn't matter. But then also in the world that we're living in now, and especially in that world of like reality TV or social media, it can feel that it's the most important thing. But sometimes I think we just have to all take a moment to remember that it's not. It's really not. And your whole life is so many things, and so many great, wonderful things. And you can have, 99 comments that are all compliments and praise. And then you can't just focus in on that one negative comment. Just for your own mental health, for your own sanity. You have to find a way to kind of let it go and kind of forgive the person for saying it a little bit as well, I think.
Charlie?
Yeah, I think that both Sonia and Courtney have hit the nail on the head, and there isn't really much more I can add to that. All I would try and endorse to anyone is that you have to just remember in this life, not everyone's going to like you. You're not always going to like everyone. People are always going to have opinions. Finding those ways of just getting perspective of that and remembering that someone's opinion of you or negative comment is not going to define you at all. You just got to take it as a particle, take it as a grain of sand, and just literally blow it off away. And I know that's not always the easiest task, but sometimes if something does trigger you, like a negative comment, just delete it, get rid of it, let it go, dust it off. Go and have a little word with yourself and remember what's really important. Remember you're a good person. Remember that you've got the people that know you for real around you, and they are a testimony to you and your character. And you just need to be true to yourself. And if you wanted to post that picture, or you're owning your imperfections, or whatever it is you're trying to put out there, just own it. Proud in that. And as the girl said, it's a reflection on the other person. Sometimes these people just need educating themselves, and some people just like getting a response, or they're getting a bit of pleasure out of thinking that their negativity is going to impact you. Again, that's on them, not you. Don't entertain it. Your time is way too valuable for that.
Thank you so much for answering all those questions. We just have 2 final questions to ask. So I'll let Naomi ask the last question.
Thanks, Lindsay. And yeah, this is for everyone as well. What would you like the people listening today to take from this session?
Charlie?
Yeah.
For me, we always just love to endorse this idea of conversation and the importance of remembering everyone's individual journey, and that this is the beautiful thing about life, is that we're all here to have a full-rounded experience. We want to achieve things. We're all here to hopefully leave a lasting impression, do something positive. And none of us are void of overcoming obstacles and having some real big challenges along the way. And that in itself is a beautiful thing. So being able to come here together today and all talk from different experiences and all get a little bit of knowledge and education on different subjects and people's paths is so valuable. And these are great tools for life in general. So yeah, I think that for my specific subject with body dysmorphia and the journey that I'm on right now, I just want to continue being an advocate to show that people do struggle, men as well, with their image, and that can lead you down some rocky paths, but it will be okay, and that there will be a way around this sort of stuff, and that's what I want to continue to do. So I just ask anyone to just keep supporting, and together we can hopefully make some difference and find that safe space and common ground that can help each other out.
Courtney?
I've got a couple. I think one thing I would say, and it's definitely true in my life, is find a person in your life, whether it's a family member or a friend, or a stranger that you can find through like Samaritans or anything like that. Find someone that you can speak to openly, honestly, about anything that you feel you need to, because yeah, absolutely, talking is so important. Similarly to that, I'd also say best advice for generally keeping, you know, a healthy mind is to find a hobby that you find really relaxing, that generally you can get so absorbed in it that you can really let go of everything else. Yes, I ride motorbikes, but I have other things as well. Even simple things, doing yoga or doing coloring, things like that. It can sound really silly, but it is such a big thing to sometimes de-stress and take a moment away from the world and the madness of that world. And I think so many of us spend our time, maybe our relaxing moments of our time, sitting on our phones and not even realizing that actually when we're sitting on our phones, we're absorbing all of this information, and not all of it is necessarily positive or calming. And we're using our downtime to do that. And I think sometimes the best downtime you can do and to really bring, you know, clarity to your life is to just put your phone down, turn off your TV, and maybe do something really simple. So you can just be at one with your thoughts and actually see how it is that you're feeling, and think things through, and or even if it's just that you want to be completely distracted from everything, distracted from problems that are going on in your life or things that are stressing you out at school or at work, just finding like some sort of hobby like that, and taking that time to be away from screen time, I guess, and the noise of life, I think is really important for everybody to have a little bit of that.
I will just add, for anybody who's not done adult colouring, it is like literally the best thing ever. I found it by accident through one of my old managers, and it does literally take you to a completely different world, particularly if you've had a really rubbish day. Just focusing on colouring in the pictures, like, phenomenal. So I'm going to put my hand up. I actively do adult colouring. So thank you that you mentioned that, Courtney, because I thought I was the only one.
No, it's brilliant.
Sonia?
One of them, like Courtney might mention, like having that one person. I strongly believe in that as well. And I think being comfortable being vulnerable around them. I know that, like, when I was in college, I felt very alone at one point, even though I had really good friends. And I think it's also okay to give a friend a chance, or a family member, or whoever it may be, give them the chance to be vulnerable around them and be open with them, you know, because it'll surprise you how much people do care that are around you. Sometimes we don't even notice, like, how much they really, really care. So I do want to second what Courtney said about that. But also I would say, like, to understand that no matter what you're seeing on social media in life and everything, even the happiest people have the darkest days, and that, like, you're not alone, and that, like, the strongest people I know are the people that are battling with this and aren't afraid to be open about it. Like, even Charlie speaking today, I was, like, amazed, you know, how open he was about it. And I think it's amazing. Like, I'm already gonna know some people to recommend to the foundation he was talking about. And, you know, I think it's just amazing when people open up and speak about it. But like I said, you know, I have a really close friend, Bashi Entertainer. He's really well known, and, you know, he's the happiest person you can see on social media, laughing and everything. And he's finally been open about his battling depression, which I think is amazing. So it just goes to show that you're not alone. And I want people to know that, as scary as it might be to open up, that I think it'll help you in the long run. And again, you're not alone. And I know a lot of people say that, maybe it's a bit corny, but if you can just find someone you can talk to, you'll find that people are actually, we're all human. We all have our flaws. We all have, you know, things we're insecure about. Even the most confident people, the most famous people, you know, we're all human, and there's a person behind the screen. So another thing is to, like, try to be positive. If you don't have something nice to say about someone, just don't say it. Just keep it to yourself, you know, like, there's no need to be hateful. And I think that, I hope that people will see that today, and, you know, hopefully reach out to someone if they need to, or again, just being positive to someone. Even a small smile or talking to someone in the street, it goes a long way. So I try to do that as well. If you see someone, you know, just smile and say hi. It makes a huge difference in someone's life, and you never know.
That's really good advice. Thank you.
We have one from Raymond.
Could you give us some top tips, please, or an affirmation you swear by?
So who wants to go first? Your top
Sorry,
tips.
you cut out a bit. Do you mind repeating that?
Could you give us some top tips, please, or an affirmation you swear by?
Who wants to go first last? This is the last question. Courtney, the spotlight's on you.
Is it on me? Okay. I think probably a little bit what Sonia was just saying. Like, I think in life in general, I think I watched The Secret. I don't know if anyone's read the book or seen it on Netflix, but I watched that a few years ago, and it kind of it was things that I already felt about life in general anyway, but something I could never probably contextualize, and it kind of was just all there. So I'd really recommend watching it or reading it. But a lot of it is just about what you're putting out into the world and what you want for your life and how to achieve that. And yeah, I think putting out what you want to receive is really important. And I think being sort of putting out, it sounds cheesy to say putting out the positive vibes, but like Sonia was saying, even just saying hello to someone can make their day. And yeah, and everybody's human. So I think just putting out the positivity and that kind of energy out into the world is what will actually help bring it back. And I think the more we fester on the negative and focus in on that too much, unfortunately, it will just have a continuous effect, and it will just draw negativity towards us. So being a positive person, being a kind person, checking in on your friends and your family members and going to that extra effort, I think will only mean that good things for you in your life, and it will only encourage the people in your life to do that same thing towards you. And sometimes you don't need to, I think sometimes we can have this attitude of, oh, this person has forgotten about me, they haven't texted me in weeks, they obviously don't like me, I'm not a true friend to them. That kind of negative narrative that we can all fall into so easily. And I think sometimes we just have to remember that everybody's going through it too. So reach out, speak to them, check in on people, check they're good, put that positivity out there, and in some way or other it will come back to you.
Charlie?
Yeah, for me, again, Courtney, you speak so much sense. I feel like we're having a life coaching session. I love it. For me, the one thing that I've learned, and one of the tips that I give, whether it's my PT clients or using my little profile in the media, is just stay true to you and don't ever diversify from that. Go with your gut. Do things that feel right for you, and don't be ashamed of that, or don't be afraid to hold or stand your ground. I speak from evidence and experience of coming away from doing what I felt was right, and it led me into some really dark places, and it didn't work out. And I learned by that, and the beautiful thing about life is lessons learned. But if I can tell anyone now, tools for life is that stay true to you, trust your gut, and work hard with conviction. Focus on what you really want to do, because we all have the opportunity to make a change in this life. And it's really important that you know that. So it's when you start trying to be someone other than yourself is where you will fall short. So
Sonia?
I think mine would be like control the things that you can control, because that applies to almost anything. If you're getting hateful comments, you can't control what they're saying, but you can control how you react. If you're stressed about work, or like me, like when I'm unsure of what's happening in my life in a month or two, like if I have to up and go, I'm like, okay, I can't control that. What can I control? Like I recently got injured. I was gonna have surgery. I might have missed World Cup qualifiers. I started stressing and staying up late. And I talked to my friend, and what can I control? Okay, I can control what I'm eating, my fitness, it's more about not the what ifs and just controlling what's in the moment. If I did poor on an exam in university, okay, I can't control it. That's happened. It's done. What can I control? That the next one I'll do well. I'll study more. So I think it helps with stress and anxiety to just, again, focus on things you can control with anything at all. I don't know, in a career job, in your careers, in your family life, if, my mom lives far from me, I can't control it. What can I do? I can text her, make sure she's okay, FaceTime her instead of stressing about the distance. Let me see what I can do to make her day or make her feel good. It's the little things. And I think the little things go a long way. And again, like I said, just focusing on the things you can control and not stressing the things you can't. I can't control if the way I look upsets someone, but I can control how I feel about that. So I think that would be my number one thing that I go by, especially being a footballer and always on the move.
Perfect, thank you. I think we've now come to the end of it. I was just going to open up quickly does anybody have anything they would like to add to our guest speakers or any last comments?
I would just like to say thank you so much to you all for opening up. It can't have been easy, but I think it's helped a lot of us watching today. So,
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for having us.
I've really enjoyed listening to all of your inspiring life stories and experiences.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
So I don't know what we do now, Mike. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, Mike's ran away.
We'll log out. All right, guys. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a good day.
Everyone.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Bye.